Hey, what's up? Welcome back. In this episode, you're going to watch me stumble through setting up a Laravel application. We've done this once before, just playing around with Laravel, but this time I'm going to use the bootcamp as a sort of walkthrough here. So the Laravel bootcamp, this brand new thing they just announced at Laracon, bootcamp.laravel.com. So this should be pretty fun to just go through and try to set this up. One of the reasons why I like to play around with Laravel is it helps give extra context when we're using other frameworks like Django or Rails. It's important to go and see what other communities are doing and how they're approaching things. And yeah, just to like test out the developer experience and see kind of maybe some ideas or inspiration for tools that we might want to bring from other ecosystems into our own. So it's a good thing to do, and I think it should be pretty fun. So I wanted to just record it in case you wanted to watch. So I'm going to speed up the parts where I'm just reading. But yeah, I'm going to try to go through this entire bootcamp thing so that we can stay frosty. Oh gosh, what is stay frosty? What is stay frosty? This is, okay, so it's a Van Halen song, but what does it mean? Oh gosh, okay, something I picked up in the military, apparently. Be alert and ready for action without letting your fear or emotions get in the way. We're going to go into this boot camp for Laravel fearlessly, and we're going to set this up and get going. Okay, so we're going to learn this. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is building Chirper with inertia. I'm not super familiar with inertia. It looks like we're going to use either Vue or React. I'm a little bit more familiar with React, so maybe we should use Vue. I don't know. Let's just stick with React so that we can minimize the number of things we have to learn. All right, so we're going to choose React. We selected React. All right, we're going to jump over to our installation here. So this demo requires that we have Docker installed. I don't actually have Docker on this machine yet, so we're going to go over to the full installation guide for, to the Docker install and set up Docker for Mac. Actually, can I install this? Oh yeah, I also want to use it for an Apple chip. So it's just installing the DMG. I might just give up and use that instead of using Homebrew. Okay, whatever. We'll just use this installer. That's fine. It's coming from docker.com, and that's probably the preferred way to do it. All right, whatever. Here we go. Gonna install that. Okay, so now Docker is being installed. What else do we have to do after we install Docker? Okay, then we're gonna just copy this curl command here, which is gonna download something, which is gonna be some bash script from Chirper. And I like to look at these and make sure it's not gonna install anything too nasty on your machine, right? Because it's copying and pasting stuff off the internet isn't great to do if you're not super familiar with what's going on. All right, so now we can say Docker. No. Did it fire it up? No. Are we installed? Did it install Docker? There it is, Docker. Got to give it some privileges. And okay, so now it has this service agreement. Cool. All right, there's Docker desktop, and now we should have a little Sammy Shark looking thing. Oh, it's not Sammy Shark. It's just another whale icon thingy. Okay, all right, so we've got Docker installed. We should be able to run this now. So let's jump over here and run that. Docker is not running. Lies. Is it still starting up? Okay, it's still starting. Okay, now is it started? Okay, now it's running. So now we can run this, I think. Okay, fantastic. So this is using Laravel Sail, apparently. I don't know what that is. Some CLI thing to help install. It seems like maybe Sail is like Foreman inside of maybe like Foreman. I don't know. Maybe not. Sail up, Sail install. No, it seems different than Foreman. Maybe it's like something related to Docker. Here's a quick tip. You can create a shell alias that allows you to execute Sail commands more easily. So, all right, we'll grab that. And while we're waiting for that other thing to download, I'll open up my ZSHRC and go down to my aliases, drop in Sail, source my .zshrc, and now we should be good to go. Once the Docker containers are started, we should be able to access it at localhost. So Laravel Breeze is like Devise inside of Rails. And so we're going to install Laravel Breeze, and that's going to set up all of our authentication features and stuff. This thing is still downloading. There's a lot to this. Wow. Okay. So this takes a while to like actually get set up. So we've got Docker installed, but now we're waiting several minutes for it to download all the different packages and everything, and then fire up those Docker containers. So this is pretty cool. Laravel Breeze lets you have several options for your view layer, including blade templates or Vue and React with inertia. So I think inside of Devise, you're just stuck with the default HTML ERB views that Devise gives you. And so this is really neat that it allows you to install Breeze, and you can set it up so that it's going to use Vue or React. That's pretty nice. So again, like what even is inertia? Build single page apps without building an API. It's like, okay, so is this like Hotwire? It leverages the server side and it has no client side routing and it doesn't require an API. So it's not a framework. Yeah, and it has, okay, so I've never used it with Rails either. So we're going to use it for the first time with Laravel, and then maybe we'll do an episode about how to use it with Rails. Docker wants to do something. Okay, so now we can finally cd into that directory and run chirper up, or sail, cd into chirper and then run sail up. Wow, chirper selenium. Okay, there's just so much output here. What is going on? Okay. Holy moly. Okay, so let's look at Docker. Let's take a look here at the dashboard. So it has Chirper started up 6 containers. Wow. Okay. So it has MySQL, Selenium, which I'm guessing is for our tests, like end-to-end tests. Fired up Redis, Melee Search, Mailhog. Wow. Okay. So lots of services fired up by default. Okay. And these are all being, yeah. So sail up does seem like kind of like bin dev in terms of firing up the server. And it looks like there's even like health routes and a bunch of, okay. So this is interesting. Okay. So now we can cd into chirper. Whoops. Oh no, I moved it into, I put it in my dot files. Chirper sail up. Sail up again. All right, so that's going to fire up all of our Docker things again. And now if we open up Chirper, okay, so, oh, right, we want to now install Laravel Breeze. So we're going to say composer require Laravel/Breeze. And again, this is going to be our authentication tools. It's downloading these packages. Composer is kind of like a dependency manager bundler like tool for installing dependencies. And then we're going to say artisan breeze install for React. And then we should be off to the races. Looks like we need to run npm run dev to actually run the Vite dev server. So let's get Breeze installed. Yeah, so for inside of Rails with Foreman, when we say bin dev, we can have it fire up like our JavaScript stuff as part of that process. I have no idea how to configure this sail thing so that it will also start npm run dev. And it looks like we also need to migrate the database. So I'm not sure why we need sail here instead of just artisan migrate. But okay. So while that's going, I wonder if I can just come over here and say bin sail artisan migrate. Okay, so this is going to run some migrations. These are migrations that came from Breeze, right? Because this is our users, passwords, users and passwords table at least are from Breeze. I don't know about failed jobs or personal access tokens. This one's probably also part of Breeze. I'm guessing maybe there's like a job thing that's part of Breeze in the background. Not sure. Okay. And then in our previous tab, once that's fired up, npm run dev, and it crashed. Okay. It looks like maybe this is related to, yeah, this is because I think I'm on M1. So, my guess is that I need to add this package. Unsupported platform. You installed ESBuild on another platform than the one you're currently using. Okay. So I don't think these instructions are in here. I think we've hit our first error that the bootcamp is not telling us about. So let's try to figure this out. So I don't know why it thinks we need ESBuild. Like I've never actually used Vite either, or Vite. But that should run Vite, and that's okay. So that's opening, failed to load this thing. Okay. Define config. All right. Okay. And all right. So in package.json, when we run npm run dev, it's running this Vite thing, which I think is loading Vite config. And the dev dependencies here, none of these, I don't know, maybe I need to like npm uninstall ESBuild or something. I don't know. Npm run dev. Oh, that worked. Okay. So because I had ESBuilds like globally installed somewhere else, I think maybe that failed. And are we up and running? Nice. Look at that. Okay. Super cool. All right. So let's go back over here. So that problem wasn't related to M1. And it wasn't related to this example. It was just that I had other crufty things. That could be challenging when you're first starting out, like to figure out what's going on. All right, so we're going to continue here to create some chirps. Models provide a powerful and enjoyable interface for you to interact with your tables in your database. It is enjoyable, right? Like I think it's probably, yeah, it probably is enjoyable. Okay, and then it's also going to give you these migrations. Those are going to change our database, and then the controller is supposed to deal with processing the requests and returning a response. One thing that's different in Laravel is that typically the validation happens in the controller instead of the model. So we'll have to like keep that in mind as we go. Interesting. Okay, so artisan make model with -mrc. This is more similar to scaffold in that it's going to create the model, the migration, and the controller all at the same time. So let's do this and we'll fire that up. Okay, so it's going to create a chirp. I think a chirp is supposed to be something like a tweet or something. Okay, model successfully created, and it created a migration. Okay. We can also do --help to see what's up. And then, okay, so it's going to create the model for you. It's going to create the migration and the controller. So we've got a model, migration, and controller. One nice thing that I like about Rails that we're not seeing here in Laravel is that Rails will print out the actual file name. So this stuff that you're seeing in the documentation here, like this exact thing is what would have been printed out in Rails, right? Like we would see the paths to all those new files. That's part of like the Rails convention for generators, is it will tell you all the new files that it created. So now I think we can say something like sail artisan migrate. Oh, we're probably supposed to follow the instructions. All right, let's keep going. All right, that ran the migration, but that was we were not supposed to do that step yet. So it says to go into our routes, and apparently, like the same way that Rails we have routes.rb, in Laravel there's several different routes, but the one it's saying to go into is this web route here, and we're going to add a new route definition for our controller, and this is how we say like what path you should go to. And apparently, because we're using a resource controller, we can do this route resource thing, which is super similar to Rails, right? Like we can just pass in something and it looks like it'll create several for us. So in the resource method here on the route class, we're going to pass in chirps, and we're also going to pass in the class. So like chirp controller is the name of the class that's going to handle those routes. So we're going to do chirp controller : class. I think that's right. And then we can, in the same way inside of Rails that we can say that we only want like index and create, here we have this sort of like fluent interface where we can say only, and then it looks like we pass in, yeah, an array of strings. So index and store. I think store is like create in Rails. I don't know. We'll see. And then we want to specify some middleware so that I think this is how we control whether or not you have to be like authenticated. So yeah, the auth middleware ensures only logged in users can access that route, and verified middleware be used if you decide to enable email verification. So what's cool about this is that instead of doing this bit at the controller level, you're doing it at the route level, which you can technically do in Rails too, but the convention I think is to add a before action or whatever. So, all right, so that should give us our route. That gives us these routes, and of course there's some method here that we can use to list out our routes. So let's do that and just see what we get back. And it crashed. Chirp controller does not exist. Chirp controller? Oh, do we need to require it or something, or like load it? Yeah, so we need to load it here. Use app HTTP. So let's see where this is. So it's in, I'm guessing app HTTP controllers, chirp controller. Controllers, chirp controller, okay, and then when we run this again, the nice thing about running these like list commands is generally when you run like Rails routes or in this case, sail artisan route, whatever, like it's actually loading up some or all of the entire application. And as it's doing that, if you have some errors, you're going to see them now instead of later on when you're trying to just load the page or whatever. Okay. So that tells us what we need. Now we're going to go over to the chirp controller and try to like actually add some stuff to it. Okay. So we're going to go to this chirp controller, go to the index action, and then I think it just wants us to return a string. Hello world. Okay. Go to localhost/chirps. Oh, we have to log in. So I don't know if that was a step in the process. I think we may have skipped a part. So let's refresh this page, register. Gosh, I really like this look and feel. It's really nice just out of the box. Okay, so we're logged in here. Now if we go to /chirps, we can see hello world. Nice. Okay, cool. Not impressed yet? Not super. A lot of this is super familiar. So, okay, here we go. All right, one thing that I really do like about this flow though is that every time it shows you a file that you've already created, the diff is really nice. It's like, oh, here's the file, or like the lines you should add and the ones you should remove. That is money. I like that. I also think that like you don't really need line numbers unless you're going to specifically talk about a line number in the prose of your documentation. So yeah, I really like this. Okay, so now we're going to use this new inertia render thing. I'm actually going to write this out. So I return inertia render, and then I think it was, yeah, chirps/index. I'm guessing that's going to be like some component or something. And then we can probably pass it some state. Okay, and then we need to like, again, import this. So we're going to say use inertia/inertia. Yeah. Okay, so now we can say inertia render. This is probably like the name of the component. So now it says we can create our front-end component chirps/index page with a form for creating new chirps. All right, this is a lot, but I'm gonna like actually type it out just so that I'm like picking everything up. So let's move this over here. Move this over here. And okay, so this is going to go into resources JS. So this is where apparently where we're going to write some JavaScript stuff. And in pages, we're going to add a new chirps directory. And in there, we're going to add index.jsx. Okay, so we're going to need to import React from React. We're also going to need to import, that's interesting, @/ I don't think I've seen that before. It seems like we're loading that from like some default route or something. Okay, we got a bunch of imports done. Now we're going to create this like index component that we're actually going to export. So export default function index, and that's going to take in some auth prop. And we're going to return a bunch of JSX here. So we're going to use that authenticated layout. We pass down that auth thing. Okay, that makes sense. So this is going to be some sort of like React provider that will wrap all of the internal content and know whether or not you're authenticated. I don't actually know how it's going to get that auth prop, but we're just following along here. So the head component title is going to be chirps. That's probably just going to modify the head tag. And then we will have a div with class name and okay. This is going to be some Tailwind CSS to make things look nice. And then we're going to have a form with on submit that is going to use some submit handler that we'll implement in a little bit. So up here we probably have const submit is equal to something. We're going to prevent default. And then that is going to make a post request to the route chirps.store. Interesting. Okay, so this is like a client-side helper for figuring out a route based on something. Okay, that's neat. I like that. And then on success is a function where we're going to call reset. And what else happens here? That's it. Okay. So this post method, the route method, the reset method, all of these are coming from some use form provider. So const data, set data, post processing, reset errors is coming from use form. And use form is starting off with a message of empty. Okay. All right, that's cool. And this use form thing comes from inertia, JS inertia. Okay, and then this head tag, I wonder, okay, so this component is also coming from inertia, and I wonder what fancy stuff that's doing. Okay, back to our form here. All right, we're going to add a text area. And this has the value of data.message. So this message here probably is related to this message here. I'm guessing when we say use form, this is going to be all the properties of the form. And then, yeah, like when we click on submit, I sort of expected that we needed to post the data from this form. And maybe that's what it will do. So I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Value placeholder is what's on your mind. Again, class name is going to be some list of Tailwind classes. And then when we say on change, this is going to take in a function set data of message to e.target. Value probably, I can't see over there that far. Let's see. Yeah, e.target.value. Okay, and then we're going to have some text area. All right, let's grab this CSS. Thank you very much. Yeah, of all the things I'm going to copy and paste, CSS is going to be one of them because there's just, especially with Tailwind, there's just so many classes and stuff. All right, and then we have our text area. Okay, so that's good. And then we also want to have this input error component. This is going to have errors.message. And again, we're going to copy the class. Oh, it's just margin top 2. Okay, that's good. All right, and then we have a primary button component inside at the last part here. Primary button class name is going to be margin top of 4. Disabled is if it's processing. So this processing Boolean seems to also come from this use form hook. Okay, all right, I think that's looking pretty good. I don't know why my styles are like not, like there's not very much coloration or like color stuff going on right now for my syntax highlighting. inside of this JSX or inside of the PHP, honestly. So I don't know what's going on there. Okay, so that's our authenticated layout. All right, we're going to refresh the page here and boom. Okay, so I probably spelled this inertia thing wrong, I'm guessing, or maybe I didn't install it. Did I not install inertia? I probably just spelled it wrong. So let's go back to our chirp controller. Inertia. Yeah. What's on your mind? Test. Click on chirp and nothing happens. Let's open the network tab and just like see what's going on here. So if we go to network and do test and click chirp. So that is making a network call. And it is sending a, wait. Okay, it's first sending a post request and then it makes a get. So the post request payload had our message that we typed in, test2, chirp. Here's our post request of test2. And then the response, there's like nothing coming back in the response. So it's giving us a 302 found and then redirecting us, right? So in the response, it's redirecting us to /chirps. So then that forces us to make a get request. We're refetching the chirps. Ooh, interesting. Okay, and because we're making this request with content type application JSON, it seems like it's coming back as JSON. So this is giving us, wow, nice. Okay, so this is including all of the auth context. And I don't know what the Ziggy thing is. What is that about? That's so interesting. Whoa, that's like all of our routes and everything? Okay, I don't know if, all right, that's odd. All right. And no errors. What is this? Okay, I don't know what's going on. All right, we're going to keep going. So at least we know it's making a post request back to the server, and I don't know if it's like already wired up to store and create that for us or not. So let's actually look. Here we are in the chirps controller. This create and store action, like the store action doesn't actually have anything implemented. So I don't think it's actually storing anything. I think it's just hitting the server and being redirected back for some reason as part of inertia. All right, so we've got all that. All right, let's go to our navigation menu. So we're going to open up the authenticated layout. Let's see. Resources, JS, layouts, authenticated layout. And then here it wants us to add a nav link after dashboard. We're going to say it's probably going to be similar. And this one is going to be called chirps. And the route I'm guessing is, yeah, chirps.index. And if the route.current is chirps.index. Okay. So that gives us should give us like a nice navigation at the top. So yeah, there we go. Chirps, dashboard, chirps. And if it's, what's cool about this is like, it already like handles this styling. Oh no, it doesn't handle the styling for us. That's only, all right. Oh, I spoke too soon. All right. So down here somewhere, there's another thing. Or like responsive. Okay, responsive nav link. Here we go. Okay, and now the responsive one has it too. Sweet. Okay, saving the chirp. All right, so this is where we start actually putting the chirp into the database. So we're going to go back to our chirps controller. Chirp controller. It's singular in Laravel, not plural. And here we're going to do some validations. So validated is going to be request validate. And we're going to pass in some stuff here. We want to validate that message data that came in. And it's required. It has to be a string and it has to be max 255 characters. Cool. And then we say request user chirps create. So this is actually pretty similar, except for the validations are happening in the controller. Return, redirect, route, chirps.index. So that's what was already happening to this redirect to chirps.index. So now if we come back over here, test. If I just like spam this with like way too many, if I say chirp, message must not be greater than 255. And that was coming from the server. So if I do this again and say chirp, then we're going to have this post request here that in the wait, what? No. Huh? Wow. Okay, so it's in the get request. So it's always redirecting. No matter what, it's always redirecting. And when it redirects, it gives you back this props with errors, and it figures out how to put those in the right spot. Okay, that's pretty nice. So yeah, you don't have to build very much at all. You just say, drop in that input error thing, and you're off to the races. That's pretty cool. Okay, now we want to make a relationship between the current user and their chirps. So we're going to go to the user model, and they are authenticatable. Okay, cool. That's very much like devise, right? Devise authenticatable. And then we are going to make a method here at the bottom. We're just going to say public function chirps, and it is going to return this has many chirp class. So yeah, I'm curious how you specify like foreign keys and public, or yeah, like the primary key, foreign key, and if the name of the association in the database is different, how do you like control all that? So that's like more advanced, I guess, eloquent relationship stuff. Eloquent is the name of the database tooling inside of Laravel. Okay, Laravel offers lots of different relationships. You can read more about them. So in like early days of Rails, we had this thing where you would specify which attributes on the database were mass assignable. We've done away with that, and everyone uses strong params now. Inside of the controller, you say, params.require.permit.whatever. But in the old days, on the model level, you used to do something like this, where we would say protected, fillable, name, password, and whatever. So if we go to our chirp, here we would say something like protected, fillable is message. Yes, I can't remember what it was. It was like adder accessible or something like that, or yeah, the old school way of doing it in Rails was very similar to this, where you would protect from mass assignment on the model level instead of on the controller level. It made it kind of a pain, because if you wanted some controllers to be able to assign certain things but not other controllers, then you had to like manage that yourself, basically. So what might be challenging here is if we want a chirp to be able to have a message created by one user but only updated by another user or something, like, then things get a little bit funky. But okay, cool. So now it says we need to update the migration. The only thing missing is extra columns to store the relationship between the chirp and the user. Okay, so all right, so we're going to go to the migrations, where we create the chirps table. And right now a chirp just has an ID, but we need to add the concept of a message. Table foreign ID is user ID. I don't know what constrained means. Cascade on delete. Okay, that creates a new string field in the database called message. Okay, all right, so now we can migrate this. Sail artisan migrate. Nothing to migrate. Oh, you know what? I messed up. Remember when I said it didn't tell us to migrate yet? All right, so now we got to figure out how to roll the database back. Can we do migrate backwards? Unmigrate? Rails artisan. Okay. How to reverse migration. Laravel. migrate rollback. Okay, so that rolled it back, and now if we try to migrate it forward, all right, so now presumably it created some trips table thing. So each migration can only be run once. During development, you may want to update an existing migration. Ooh, migrate fresh. Interesting. Okay. All right, so let's test it out again. So we're going to refresh and say test and click chirp. All right. And all right. And then we can open up the Laravel console, which is called Tinker, Sail Artisan Tinker. And here, I guess we can say chirp all. And we've got one in there. Great. And that has our user ID, and it has the message that we just created. All right, we can exit out of that and continue on to showing our chirps. So one thing I'm realizing is that I said when we create the model, it's kind of like scaffolding, but it's not though, because the chirp controller was not fully populated with all of the information about create, like all the CRUD actions were not actually implemented for us. So it created the controller, but all of the controller actions were empty. I think that might actually be what I want with Rails too, is like scaffold the controller, but don't actually fill it in for me yet. Okay, retrieving the chirps. So back in our index method here we're going to say something like chirp.all or whatever to give us back our chirps. But it looks like it's actually different than that. It wants us to use chirp.with, user ID and name. Okay. Chirp.with, user, :ID and name. That's interesting. I have no idea what this colon thing is. I'm assuming with is sort of like select or pluck, but I don't know. Latest and get. Okay, latest probably means like order by ID descending or something. All right, let's see. Nope. Call to undefined relationship user on the model chirp. So we probably have to go define like the belongs to method. We're using Eloquent's with method to eager load every chirp associated with user ID and name. Interesting. Okay, so this is user. This is saying eager load the user's ID and name. Oh, interesting. Okay, so in Rails, we would say like includes user, and that would just include all of the user's data and eager load that for us. Okay, latest is again reverse chronological order. Cool. All right. This is just saying we're not talking about pagination yet. Go figure that out later. All right, so yeah, we've got to go to our chirp model, and we have to add this belongs to thing. So we're going to say public function user, and this is going to have belongs to user class. Okay. That's the inverse of the has many we created earlier. Right. All right, updating our component. So we're going to create a front-end component for our chirp. So we're going to go back to resources, JS, components, and we're going to add chirp.jsx, import React from React, and then export default function chirp. And that's going to take in the chirp data, I'm guessing, somehow. And we're going to return some JSX here. And what is that going to look like? We're going to have a div, and I don't know, there's some SVG thing, and then we have another div, and some p tag. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to grab the SVG. I don't like writing those out by hand. Something changed with my syntax highlighting, and it's not, yeah, something's not working right. Okay, so we've got our class name there, and this one is just going to be, class name is flex1. And then inside of here, we have another div. Okay, this is actually here. Flex between items center. Okay, yep, cool, 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 cool. All right, and then probably a span for the name. Okay, and then a small for the date of chirp.createdApp. All right, and then finally the p tag at the bottom has our actual chirp.message. Okay. Finally, we're going to update our index component to accept in the chirps prop and render out our actual chirps. So pages, chirps, index. So now this is going to take in chirps. And we need to import the chirp from @/components/chirp. So this @ is like refer to the root of my JS resources. That's interesting. Okay. Is that a Vite thing? Or, yeah, I don't know. Okay. And what do we want to do? Now down here, after our form, we're going to add a list of all of our chirps. For each chirp, we want to just render back a chirp with the key being the chirp ID and the chirp being the chirp. Chirp, I've said chirp so many times that it doesn't seem real anymore. Like it doesn't, yeah. Is that even a real thing? All right, and then we'll just grab this class name so that it looks nice. One other thing that I like about this demo is that the class names, there's actually not too many of them. And I think it might look pretty nice. Oh, wow, look at that. This is the SVG for the little chat box. And if we say test2 and we chirp, that's going to be at the top. Wow, that looks beautiful. I love that. Okay, that's super nice. All right, cool. What's next? Now we want to make it editable or relative dates. Ooh. Yeah, I've been wanting to use day.js for something, so let's do this. So we're going to install day.js, which is supposed to sort of be like a spiritual successor maybe to Moment. And yeah, so let's open back up our chirp.jsx, I'm guessing, and then we're going to edit that date time situation here somewhere. So yeah, so instead of new date, here we're going to say day.js, pass in that thing, and then from now should give us like a nice looking thing. Uh-oh, we broke something. All right. Do we need to restart this? Nope. What's going on? Okay, so we're going to open up the console and we're going to look at what errors we have. Day.js is not defined. Okay, so I think I forgot to import it. So we're going to come back over here. Yeah, import day.js from day.js, maybe? I don't know. Let's see. What does it tell us to do? Day.js from day.js, and then relative time from day.js plugin relative time. So one of the problems with Moment was that people were finding that it was just super heavyweight in order to work with dates, and so people didn't like that. And so date FNS, or like date functions, and day.js are supposed to make it better, so you can sort of just pull in exactly what you need and that's it. So let's see if this wants to play nicely. See, now it says 2 minutes ago, 13 minutes ago. That's way cooler. Okay, very nice. All right, so we're going to take a look in the browser, see what it looks like. Cool. All right. So now we're going to add editing chirps. Twitter doesn't even have this. We're going well above and beyond. Okay. All right, so first we're going to update our routes to support update. So we're going to go to our routes file. And down here where we added this, we want to now add, in addition to store, we want to support update. And we're going to now go to our chirp component, the JSX component on the front end. And what are we going to do? We're going to add use state from React. And what is that going to give us? Editing. Set editing. This is like if we're changing it. Okay, so by default, that's false. It also wants us to pull in a couple different components. Drop down, input error, primary button. Since we've already added these, I'm going to pull those in. We know where those come from. So that is all straightforward. And then from inertia, again, we're going to use form and use page. So import, use form and use page. So if you're learning something, then I think, like if you're learning how to code, I do think it matters that you type it out, because when you type it out, you start to see different things. You start to see shapes, and you start to see, oh, this is actually capital or not capital or whatever. And oh, this is actually being pulled in from @inertia instead of @/inertia or whatever. And in fact, I made a mistake. I was going to go inertia/inertia-react here, but that's a mistake because this is actually inertia.js. And if I was just copying and pasting directly, then I wouldn't have seen that. And I wouldn't have like started to remember and build up that muscle memory so that I can go and build this on my own. So even though I'm going through and I could easily copy and paste everything from the guide, at first I want to type it at least once. And then once I'm familiar with it, then I'm like more comfortable copying and pasting. So here I'm going to say use page. And okay, so this use page thing is likely working with that authentication provider that's wrapping up this whole app, right? And so this is allowing us to pull off the auth, which is cool. Which is important because, why does that matter? Yeah, I think we're going to use it. Yeah, we're going to use it somewhere down here. So, yeah. Okay. All right. So we need to add, we're going to add a form at the bottom probably. Yeah. So let's go down and say, okay. Yeah. So we're going to remove the message. So we're removing the message and we're saying, if we're editing, show the form, otherwise show the message. Okay. So here we're going to do something like, this is like a React thing where you use these ternaries. And then you can, now we'll write like, okay, so if we're editing, then we're going to do a form with on submit is going to be equal to submit. And then otherwise, we're going to do this p tag. And then we'll close up our ternary operator here. And so for this form, it's going to have the text area and all that stuff that's available on chirp index. I think it's going to be pretty close to the same as this form. So I'm just going to copy that and then drop it in here. Okay. And then I'm just going to look and make sure that looks pretty similar. It looks like we might actually have more classes on this one. So I'm going to grab the rest of those classes for the text area. Maybe it's the same. I don't know. And then what else we got? Okay. The primary button now is going to be called save instead of chirp. Oh, there's also a cancel button. Okay. So we're also going to add button on click, set editing to false. Oh, and reset. And recall reset is coming from that inertia.js form thing, right? Yeah, so we're going to use that. We're going to use that hook to pull in a bunch of different stuff. So this use form hook gives us back a bunch. And we're going to initialize it with the chirp.message so that it's like pre-populated. The form is pre-populated with that. And then we're going to use data, set data, patch, processing, reset errors. Okay. And then for our form, we need this submit function. Again, we're going to prevent default. And then we're going to call patch, which is kind of like post, but instead it's just going to be like updating something. The route is going to go to chirps.update. And for this route, we have to pass an ID so it knows which chirp it's going to update. And then we're going to say on success something. And what is that going to be? Set editing to false. Okay, so this is like a nice little thing. After our created at, there's like another potential thing that says if the created and updated at are different, then we're going to show that it was edited. Chirp.created at does not equal chirp.updated at. Then we're going to print out another small that probably has, yep, the same stuff. And what that's going to look like is, we'll just say edited. Nice little dot there. Sure. Okay. And then, all right. So if the chirp user ID and the auth user ID are the same, then we're going to have a drop-down list that allows us to edit the chirp. Okay. So here, right. Okay. So this is so that we only show the edit button on chirps that are our own. Otherwise, we would be showing the edit button on everyone's chirps, and that wouldn't make sense. So chirp.user.id is the same as auth.user.id. Then we're going to do something. Isn't it weird that and actually means then, sort of? That's like the short circuit. We're just like really misappropriating the short circuit logic of JavaScript for JSX, which is not cool. I don't know. But this is like the way everyone does it, so. Drop down dot trigger. And then we have a content, drop down dot content. Okay. Gosh, I got to get some tag helpers for JSX. So the button, this is going to be like the 3 dots, I'm guessing, like the hamburger style button menu thing. Okay, and then the content is going to be a button. And the button is going to say edit. And I think this is probably going to make it so that it just marks editable as true. On click is set editing true. I prefer to put all the classes, especially when we're working with Tailwind, at the very end. That way, like, you don't accidentally miss that this thing actually has a function at the end that is set up for its on-click handler. Okay. All right, let's see what this looks like. So, must be in an enclosing tag. Did I? Okay, it seems to think. Oh, this is missing a close curly. Okay, there we go. All right, there's our little edit menu. We can say edit and crashed. All right, let's open up the terminal. What do we got going on? Data is not defined. Oh, because I copied that from the other form. So what is the form in this case? Yeah, it's data.message. So, all right, so, I said date here. That should be data. Okay. Refresh. We say edit, test2, again, save. All right, so it's not updating, and that's because we haven't implemented the controller method yet to actually update the database. I'm guessing that's the next step. Yep, updating our controller. Okay, so now we're going to go to the update method, in the chirps controller, that's going to be weird, chirp controller to be, got to adjust to make it singular in my brain. All right, so then I think we need to, okay, authorize the update. I'm not sure why we need to do that because we have that auth middleware. Oh, maybe this is so that we can authorize that like a specific user is allowed to make this change. So this kind of gives us like the role-based authentication stuff out of the box. That's cool. So validated is again going to be like request. Actually, this is, I can grab this from up here. Okay, and then chirp update the validated stuff, and then we're going to return redirect to that index route. Okay. And this is not supposed to be a fat arrow. Skinny arrow. All right. Refresh. Test 2. This action is unauthorized. Okay, so how do we do that authorization? You may have noticed the validation rules are duplicated in the store method. You might consider extracting them using Laravel's form request validation. Makes it easy to reuse. Huh. What is this? Form requests are custom request classes that encapsulate their own validation and authorization logic. So there's a lot of folks in Rails that would build these like service models or like PORO, like plain old Ruby objects that would handle accepting in a bunch of form data and validating it and then saving maybe several different models. And so this sounds really familiar to that, but it looks like it probably also does some other fancy validation stuff. And it lets you keep this bit here that is like creating these validators in a separate object. This is more advanced than I'm ready to get into though. So I'm going to stick with going through this authorization. So by default, authorize is going to prevent everyone from being able to update a chirp. And we need to specify who is allowed to update it by creating a model policy. All right, so this is a new thing, a model policy. I don't have a mental model for this, but we're going to just run this. So make policy chirp policy. That's for the chirp model. And that is going to create a file. Again, it would be nice if this was printed out to the console so we could see that. All right. So what we need to do is go down to the update method, and this tells us who can update it. And it takes in the user who's attempting to update and the chirp. So here we can say, we can return a Boolean, right? Yep, we need to either return a response or a Boolean. And that is going to be if the user's ID is the same as the chirp ID, or the chirp user ID, then they can update it. All right, so let's give it a whirl. Test 2. Oh, amazing, look at that. Okay, it says edited and it has our new updated text. Amazing, okay. To allow deleting of chirps. Okay, back to our routes. Update, delete, or destroy. And then we're probably going to go back to the front end. No, we're going to go to our controller and go to our destroy method. This. Delete chirp. Okay, so this means that we're probably going to need to go back to that authorization thing where we said that this user could update it, and we're going to need to update that again so that it works for delete also. Okay, so let's go to our chirp policy. I'm just going to guess this is going to be the same here. If we scroll down, look at our authorization. Oh, okay, so this uses a different pattern. I just copy and pasted, but now this is saying like default to the update, or like use the update logic instead of that. Okay, that's cool. All right, now we need to go update our component to add a delete method. So we're going to go back to our chirp JSX component. And here we're going to add another action drop down dot link as button. I don't know what that means. Okay, this seems like it might be kind of like using button2 to quickly create a method that will send a post request or a delete request or whatever. So the href is going to the chirps.destroy route for chirp.id. And the method is probably destroy, delete, delete. Okay, so that's going to send, I think that's going to send an AJAX request client side to delete it. Look at that. Wow. Okay, that's dope. All right. Moving on. All right, we deleted it. Cool. Notifications and events. Sending email notifications when a chirp is created. Okay. All right, here we go. Whoa. Built-in support for email, SMS, Slack, a variety of communication notifications. This is like the notice gem is like built in directly into Laravel. This is so cool. Make notification. That's actually like super similar to Chris Oliver's notice gem. Okay, so we're going to create a new notification called new chirp. And again, come on, show me the output. All right, it's going to, okay. And what is this going to do? We need to, we're going to say use app models chirp. And we need to use illuminate support string. I don't know. Okay. It seems like this might be sort of like active support, and it's going to give us some string helper methods or something. All right. So here we need to override the constructor so that it takes in a chirp. We're not going to override or just modify it. And we don't actually have to do anything else with it. That's weird. And then we update the toMail method here. All right, so it's going to be a new mail message. There's going to be a line. Oh, we're deleting the line and we're deleting the action. All right, let's just delete everything. So we're going to say subject is new chirp from this chirp user name. When do I have to put parens around this? I guess chirp in this case is related to the chirp that we initialized the new chirp notification with, but I don't understand why I don't have to put parens here on this second one. That's like some PHP thing. Help me with my PHP. Okay, and then we want to say greeting. I don't know. New chirp from. What does this greeting do? This doesn't make sense. Come on, Vim. Line is limit. Okay, so this is going to just like truncate or something. This chirp message to 50 characters. And then action, go to chirper. And the URL is /. Okay, and then finally there's another line for thank you for using. Okay, no idea if that's actually going to work. Okay, we could send the notification directly from the store method on our chirp controller, but that adds more work to the controller, which in turn can slow down the request, especially as queuing the database. Instead, let's dispatch an event that we can listen for and process in a background queue to keep our application snappy. So we're going to create an event. This is another new concept. Okay, creating an event. Chirp created. Creates a chirp created event. Since we're going to be dispatching events for each new chirp, update our chirp created event to accept the newly created chirp. So this is going to take in our public chirp. And okay, that's it. And then dispatching the event. So from the chirp model, use app events chirp created. Interesting. Okay. So here we're going to say protected. Dispatches events. So this is almost like an active record callback. Like when the chirp is first created, it emits this chirp created event. And then we have to build a listener. All right. So the nice thing about this is it sort of decouples the logic from being inside of your model as part of a, like in Rails, if we were to say, just use an active record callback for like on created, do this thing. This is separating it out and it's saying like, we're going to define the event in one class and we're going to find the listener in another class. And then we're just going to configure the model so that when certain events fire on the model or when certain things happen on the model, those publish specific events so that you can listen to them. I kind of like that pattern more. All right, so send chirp created notifications is going to be a new listener that's listening for this specific event type. Okay. And it's going to be, okay, it's going to be put here. All right. And all right, so we're going to need the user model and the notifications, new chirp. And this class is going to implement should queue. All right, so when we are handling the event, so for all the users except the one who just tweeted or chirped, the funny thing is that Twitter is, they have a conference called Chirp. So even though Chirper is not Twitter, it's similar in many ways. All right, so then we're going to say user, for all the users, we're going to notify them with this new chirp notification based on the chirp that's coming in from the event. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this cursor thing is giving us a database cursor instead of loading all the users. That's cool. Okay, event service provider. This seems like it was something that was given to us by default. And we have to come in here and tell it about this new thing. So we're going to say use app events chirp created. So for the chirp created event, when the chirp created event fires, we want to send chirp created notifications. That makes sense. So we're registering that listener. This is how we tie together the listener to the event type. Okay, Laravel sale includes MailHog, integrated email testing tool. MailHog's at 8025. What is this thing? This is so cool. Okay, so now it says, all right, so let's try this out. What is this going to do? Let's go to our chirps, refresh, test. Again, click on chirp. Oh, you know what? We don't actually have any other users who would have received that. So we got to like go make another user. Register. Oh, okay. So in new chirp PHP line 47. New chirp PHP line 47. Oh, here. I'm missing a close curly brace. Okay, I saw that because of this, this first line here gives me this hint, and it says it's on line 47. So colon 47, usually that's like, I don't know what it means. So testing again. All right, did it actually send an email? What? No way. New chirp from another user a few seconds ago. Holy moly, that is dope. Okay, I love that. That is so cool. Okay. Deploying your application. We're not going to deploy today. I don't want to have to like set up accounts and stuff, but okay. Very cool. Awesome. This was fun. This was cool. I feel like I learned a ton. There's a bunch inside of Laravel that is brought in with gems. So we learned about Breeze. That is sort of equivalent to devise. We learned about events and notifications, which are sort of like solved by the notice gem and then some background jobs with active job. Lots of really cool stuff with inertia. I'm not sure I 100% fully understand how it works, but it makes sense that there's these client-side inertia.js methods that you can pull into your React app and then use those providers to interact with forms and then make sure that you're sort of like doing validations and those validations are appearing in those error inputs. So this is pretty cool stuff and pretty fun. Hopefully that was useful for you, especially if you're a Rails dev that's been curious about Laravel. And yeah, I don't know. I'm always like kind of just watching what's going on in the Laravel ecosystem. And yeah, it's similar. I feel similarly about Django. So kind of watching what's going on in the Django ecosystem too. And yeah, at some point, this might actually be more productive for me to use Laravel than Rails. But for today, I'm still just way more familiar with Rails. And so that's what I choose to use. But yeah, this is fun. So hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.